and she's deeply scarred from her parents' tortures under the Ceausescu regimes, and she's cold-hearted and a brutal killer, and they're gonna have lots of sex, which will open up her heart.
No.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are tonight's entertainment.
There's no business like show business.
Sit back, relax.
Thank you so much for coming out tonight, guys.
Showtime, folks.
Is the moment we've all been waiting for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble! It's time!
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Film Game, the show where we create a cinematic masterpiece from just 5 random words. And today, as always, with me is the main man, Andrei Barbat. Welcome to the show. And today we have our first ever guest, a professional screenwriter, producer, defender against the dark arts that lurk within Hollywood, Mr. Kamran Pasha. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Saad. I didn't realize I was your first guest. I'm honored by that. And as I was saying before we went live, from what I understand of the game, it's not that different from many of the story development meetings I've sat in on. So it should be interesting to see where my skills are, whether they're rusty.
Yes, okay.
So the 5 words that we will be using to create our film are the following: mold, chew, miss, motorcycle, and construct. Challenges: we have to use every one of these words within the story that we create.
So I'm gonna defer to you, gentlemen, because this is your video and you know how this game works. So I'm gonna try to tag on board.
Okay. So I'm thinking of this motorcyclist, this kind of Evel Knievel type of guy.
Okay, so we don't have to go in order. We can go anywhere.
Yeah. Anything within it, we just try and make it out of it.
Okay, here we go.
I'm thinking of this Evel Knievel type of guy, right?
Yeah.
And he's doing this big stunt, and everyone's like, "No, man, you can't do it." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to do it." So it's this big jump, and he misses it, right? So we got 2 words there.
We got 2 words. So he misses it. It's like he's going through the flaming hoop and he doesn't land. Okay.
Yes,
right.
And then he damages himself really badly. Like he breaks his leg. He's unable to chew. And they put like a mold, a cast. Is that a mold cast type of thing?
I think you could use
I
that.
don't think so.
Is it
Okay, how about his leg gets moldy because of the damage, something like that.
Okay.
And yeah, we can reject or accept this idea anyway.
Okay.
And then to construct it back together, my mind automatically went to what's it called, $6 Billion Man, or that recent.
Well, it was $6 Million Man when I was a kid.
The world's first Bionic Man.
Every guy who owns a little bit of crypto's got $6 million, so that doesn't mean anything anymore.
And it's automatically going towards that, or what was that recent Vin Diesel film? Was it Blood?
Fast and Furious?
No, that blood thing.
Bloodshot.
Bloodshot.
Bloodshot, yeah, Bloodshot.
It's basically this evil company. They build him back together, and then they use him to go fight some people. And then he's like, "Nah, man," and then he takes out the company. So that's the idea.
Like Akira turns against her.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's the beginning of a movie, and then sort of you've established the opening sequence of the first act of the movie there, and then we have to see where we go from there. So that can work. That's look, think about it. I mean, how different is it from the original story of a $6 Million Man from the 70s, which is based on the novel Cyborg, where you have an astronaut who crashes back on his parachute of his rocket doesn't open and he crashes and he should have been killed, but he's basically mangled, and they use the technology, bionic technology to save his life, but now he becomes a superhero because he's got these implants that are super powerful. So it's not that different from that story.
Sir, Andre, were there any ideas that came out as well?
Well, I was gonna say, you made with all these 5 words, you didn't really make a film, but rather a scene. So I'd say let's try to extend those words. Let's not use all of these words or concepts in just one scene, but use it over the course of the film. I think this idea of a motorcycle rider who wants to do something, who wants to do a really big stunt and fails, this is a good starting point. It could go to many interesting things. In a way, it reminds me of Ghost Rider, the one with Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, sure.
Because again, he wants the stunt that he's doing has emotional meaning to him, because it was the stunt that his father always wanted to do.
Okay.
So I think it's a motorcycle rider who wants to do this in the first act, this big stunt, and fails, misses. Okay. And I think we should think about the second act and what the premise of the film would be. So what kind of a genre or topic, or what would be the main attraction of this film? Because based on that, we could come up with different meanings of those words. Right now, to me, it seems like some sort of an action film, but which doesn't take itself seriously, a bit like Bloodshot, but a bit more towards the Guardians of the Galaxy side. So with different jokes and humoristic side. So I think he isn't allowed to chew for whatever scientific reason. He isn't allowed to chew. He's only allowed to chew moldy foods. So other than that, he can only drink soup or whatever. But unless the food isn't, I mean, he can only chew moldy food. That's, I don't know, something that really came out of my mind.
So you don't show moldy foods. That doesn't sound that healthy.
Oh. But so it could be this bionic man. He can't chew. He's got to take this moldy serum.
Maybe this mold is what gives, what charges his bionic elements inside his body. It's just this new technology. It's nanotech, which runs on mold. And in order to properly acquire that mold within his bionic body, he's got to chew it. So that's the only way the moldness can actually support his body.
Okay.
So that's his medical condition, if I can say so. And I think construct is a very great concept for his objective, his main objective throughout the film. He wants to construct something. What? I'm not entirely sure right now. I think we're gonna see what exactly in a few minutes. But yeah, that's my idea. I think he's got this medical condition in which he chews moldy foods. What do you guys think?
Okay. All right. Well, it certainly sounds like a comedic film, and it can absolutely be fun. So, all right. So, do you want me to try my hand at this?
Yeah. So based on
definitely.
Okay. So let's take something. So I'm just looking at the words you've given me. So I'm just my brain is going to which of these can be used to create a big problem, because we need to have a big problem, I think, for a movie, ultimately to climax in the movie, right? So the word mold is interesting because molds, when you get mold in your house, it can actually be life-threatening. It can be very dangerous, right? You breathe it in, it can actually kill you, right? And so so you've got something here. So you've got mold, which could actually become sort of the problem, right? And so what if you had a movie that's just where people think that there's just mold spreading their homes, right? But we'd actually discover it's something much bigger than that. It could be, let's say it's a biological attack. Let's say it's a biological attack that's being disguised in the form of this mold, because people think it's a normal, but then hundreds and then thousands of people start dying from this. It's not even a normal mold, right? You get your house. So you've got your crisis. You've got a biological attack from the enemy country that's using mold, which, crazy as that sounds, I'm sure there are plans inside, some various nefarious intelligence agency to use mold.
Biological threats are about the deliberate misuse of science for hostile purposes, and we're specifically talking about disease and infection. Some of the areas that we're particularly worried about are gene editing technologies, gain-of-function technologies, where you are deliberately creating potentially pandemic pathogens in the lab.
Mold as against their enemies. I mean, they have plans for everything, right? So that's not completely insane, right? And so now you've got this biological attack with this genetically engineered mold that is hyper destructive and is spreading, right? And so now you've got your hero. You've got your hero who's sort of a James Bond, true James Bond, not sort of the modern fake James Bond, the true James Bond, the true secret agent who's got the beautiful girls, right? Not the guy who's like, working out his emotional issues. That's not James Bond, right? So you've got a James Bond type figure who is, and we're first introduced to him, doing a crazy motorcycle stunt while he's fighting the bad guys, right? And one of these things where he's just, basically, driving like a maniac, going straight into incoming traffic and, dodging bullets, and then, flying over the bridge and over the cliff to escape the bad guys and all that. And so that's how we're introduced to our hero. And then the hero is called in by, the mission commanders that, we have this big problem here. We've got to stop this, this evil adversary that is now poisoning people, right? And so one of the things I think, so you've got the word chew there, right? And so the image that comes to mind is, let's make it bigger than it appears. We could just make it about him chewing gum or whatever, but no, let's actually make it a sequence within where he's basically, and again, these are out of sequence and we'll link them together if we need to make a movie, right? But we can get an action sequence where essentially he's trapped in the villain's lair, kind of, the James Bond villains, shark with the lasers on their head kind of situation where he's got to get out of, right? So I think the only, his hands are bound and he can't get out of it, and the villain looks like, no, Mr. Bond, I want you to die, right? There's no way out of the situation, right? But he essentially chews through the ropes and the things that are being used, right? Because that's the one thing the villain didn't think that he could do, right? And if it seems unrealistic, we can even give him the cue, gave him certain, teeth infillings that are not normal, like bionic teeth for a situation. So he chews through, maybe even chews through a metal thing that's holding him, right? And he escapes. So we've got a cool action sequence. We've got a motorcycle action sequence. We got this escaping, the sharks with the lasers by chewing through. That's kind of cool. And then, so now we've got Miss. So the way I would do Miss would be his sultry, Romanian, counterpart. We get a sultry Romanian intelligence agents, right? She's deeply scarred from her parents' tortures under the Ceausescu regimes, and she's cold-hearted and a brutal killer. And they're gonna have lots of sex, which will open up her heart.
No.
That's it. We can't. We gotta keep it PG.
Yeah, PG.
Don't be that rule.
Well, we could imply that they have.
Well, James Bond is kind of PG.
But keep it kosher, because
Fine, whatever. But you know, they at least make out. They make out. James Bond makes out, and then they quick cut, right? James Bond makes out, and we don't see the deed. We just quick cut. We know what happened, right? So he's gonna meet Miss Romania, who's going to be his, you know, who's gonna first be trying to kill him, and then she's gonna be on his side when she realizes that it's her boss who's behind the evil mold. Right, he's a leftover from the old Ceausescu regime who wants to bring that system back worldwide, right? And so now it's like, you know, and so, you know, so now she realizes she's working for the bad guy. So this Miss Romania is working for the bad guy, and so she gets together with our Bond type hero to stop him. Because she works for the bad guy, she knows his secrets, knows how to get into the lair, knows his thingies, right? And then, you know, then what we have to do is, so now we have one last word here. So the last word here is construct, right? So what I think they need to do is they need to have a great action sequence inside the villain's lair at the end, where, you know, they actually have to essentially construct the elements they need to take down the lair. You know, you can't, you know, the joke of the old James Bond movies in the 60s was you'd have Blofeld, while he's captured Bond, say, you know, the only way to stop me is if someone pressed that red button over there, and, you know, no one's gonna, because you, Mr. Bond, will die, so you'll never have a chance to press the red button, but I'll tell you about it, right? So we're not gonna do that, right? Because I think storytelling has evolved past that. So they actually don't, they have to figure out a way, they have to construct something. And this is where they're going to use their collective genius as this, you know, American or British trained agent and this Romanian trained agent, and they're going to construct essentially the bomb that's going to blow the you know, the Death Star generator that's creating the mold and spreading it everywhere. So we've got our action sequence. And so I think those are the elements of a movie there. And now you got to connect the rest of it.
I definitely like this idea. It's like sort of a much needed reboot of this spy action thriller with modern elements, with biochemical attacks and stuff like that. The only thing I'd ask is whether this film would be suitable to have any political tones. And I don't mean left wing, right wing. But you mentioned something very interesting, which was that the Romanian lady, she got some trauma from the communist regime. And I'm wondering whether this film would explore the political tones of Romania, how bad it was during communism, how it's still progressing. It's progressing nicely, but not as much as we would like right now under the European Union and stuff like that. Like, if you think it would be suitable to have an allegory of something more than just a spy thriller, like a political theme of a country under communism, which came into capitalism, and it paid a great price during the revolution, and it suffered a lot under communism and stuff like that. Do you guys think it would be cool to have it, or just keep it commercial and, you know, like a Marvel film, just action sequence and stuff like that?
Well,
personally, I don't think it should have, but I'm asking you.
Well, I'll let Saad speak, and then I'll give my opinion.
Go ahead. I'm going.
Okay, so all right, so I think that any kind of politically preachy film of any kind is a bore, right? And so what you have to do is you have to make a political, you know, films have political messages, and they certainly can have them, and but you have to make it more subtle. You have to, you know, it's got to be about character. So instead about, you know, I obviously am not a very pro-communist person. I think anyone knows anything about me knows I'm actually very much about freedom, but, you know, so but let's see the effects. We can flash back to what you're describing. We can flash back to the horrors of the old regime that she was a little child in, right? And then we can flash back, you know, her parents were killed by the old regime. But then we see that, as you know, in the next several years after that, Romania went through a very chaotic period, just like all of the former Soviet bloc did, when an entire system collapses. A lot of gangsters rose. That's what always happens, right? And so criminals took over. A lot of bad corruption happened, right? And so then she suffers as a teenager under that system. So she's, you know, the ideal, wonderful freedom of the West isn't what she experiences, right? Right. So that makes her, in the flashbacks, you see that that is what made her prone to be recruited by this ideologue who's going to offer the third way, right? Communism was one way, corrupt capitalism was the other way. He's going to offer the third way. And he's like a cult leader visionary, right? And he brings her in. He's the one that saves her from the streets that she's living in. Maybe she's, you know, she's put in very bad situations as a teenager because of the poverty, right? And he saves her from that. And, you know, and then he becomes her mentor and he trains her to be an assassin and all of these things and take out his enemies. And he's actually got this motivation of, we have to find the new way, the new path, right? And so it's less about the politics, but more about the personality, her character and the personality of the villain.
Yes.
Right.
Just to add,
Yes.
so we've got all that good stuff. So that's our main thing, the James Bond thing. And just to take something from the original Evel Knievel idea, every James Bond film has a henchman. So we can have our bionic former stuntman as the henchman going after James Bond. Just to throw that in.
Well, the evil henchman, yeah, sort of like Jaws was,
yes.
you know, look, you can even resurrect Jaws and have him be the true figure, right? You know,
yes.
and that's why Q actually gives him a way to counteract Jaws, is gives him his own way to have something, because, you know, you've got the villain's henchman is a Jaws type figure who's got the metal teeth and whatever, and so Q, knowing that he's been sending on this mission, gives him sort of like, you know, the electronic thing that will allow him to be a counterpart to Jaws, right?
Yes.
So that's fun.
There we go.
See, that's it's
film.
all good. It's all good stuff.
Yes, sir. Any ideas on casting at the moment? So I'm still hesitant on the whole kiss thing. I want to keep it a little bit more kosher.
Oh yeah, yeah, brother. Now you're trying to keep the Imam in Bedford happy, brother.
Or
your mom in Bedford's watching James Bond. Don't worry about it. He is. He totally is.
Or we have a real life married couple to play the leads, Priyanka Chopra and Joe Jonas. So the question is for Andrei, can an Indian lady be passed off as a Romanian?
Yeah. Oh, the answer, I don't think we need to even ask Andrei that question. And I've met Ms. Chopra a few times, and
really,
I would not encourage that. I would not encourage that.
Okay, sir.
Well, it's actually authentic because Romania and most of Eastern Europe has a Romani
the gypsy population, sure, and they're Indian. Yeah. But no, I'm going to urge you to always aim higher. You know, don't aim for the little room. Don't aim for the casting that you just aimed for. Aim a little bit higher. Okay. Aim a little bit higher, my friend.
Okay, who do you have in mind? Who is your ideal James Bond at the moment?
Well, I mean, the thing is this: there's, you know, after I think James Bond has been ruined by this most recent movie, which I thought was not James Bond and really damaged the franchise. So it leaves the whole thing up in the air, because whatever they do now, you know, unless they erase this movie from the canon of James Bond films, I don't know where you go from there. So look, I at this point, it's not about the casting. It's more about, you know, can you get I mean, you could make this a Mission Impossible movie, right? You can make this Mission Impossible 25 or whatever it is next, right? You can make this Tom Cruise and the hot Swedish chick, right? And that's it. That's enough to go, right? So I mean, it for me, I'm not worried about casting at this stage. I mean, because casting is the final stage of a process. You know, the first thing is you have to have a script that works, that's going to make actors want to get involved. It's going to make you get the financing that you need.
Yeah.
Right? So
it's the purposes of the game. It's the pie in the sky idea.
Well, I mean, I got you know, sort of some of these failed James Bond wannabes recently, like Richard Madden, right? You got all these guys who tried to get the job, right? I wouldn't go with Loki. I know he wanted to be Bond, but I don't think we give it to him, right? So you know, and so yeah, I mean, it's you want a dapper British guy, but the problem is, well, you British guys ain't dapper anymore, right? And so, you know, that's all kind of done, right? Or you know, the British dapper guy died in the 80s. I don't know. So it's hard to find that guy.
And well, the other thing, we normally pick like a director as well.
Aren't you guys going to direct it?
No, we're producers. We're just
Since you told us to go as high as possible, then let's pick a Hollywood director.
Let's have fun. Let's do Ang Lee. Go for Ang Lee. He will bring depth to it, right? He will make it an action film you've never seen before. Just like he made a comic book film you've never seen before in the Hulk, right? You'd make it an action film.
Yes, sir.
But what's great about Ang Lee is that he's able to get to emotional depths, right? As a storyteller, which is why The Life of Pi, which should not have worked as a film, is one of the greatest films ever made, right? Because he's able to explore emotional depth.
Fun.
Yeah.
How would we name this film?
Oh yeah, we normally we do that as well.
And
would it be the main character's name or just an idea like Mission Impossible or something like that?
Normally it's like, what's a good franchise name for this idea?
Yeah, I mean, well, you're creating. Let's say you're not glomming on to James Bond or to Mission Impossible, and so you're actually doing your own franchise, and then it all depends on whether this is done as a serious film like a Mission Impossible or it's done as a tongue-in-cheek type of film, where it's all done as a humorous thing, and then the title reflects that. How do you see it?
Yes, I think so like normally we do these like absurd ideas, and then it's like trying to find the sincerity in the absurdity. I like that.
Mold Warriors.
Yeah.
Project
Mold Warriors. And you know what we're gonna do, Andre? On Project Mold Warriors, the one sheet, the poster, we're gonna have the two leads kissing because our buddy here can't handle that. Our buddy here is like he's like 1950s Pakistani guy.
Definitely.
Like, oh no, I cannot. Oh, you cannot, no kissing. And so we're gonna do that on the poster.
Yeah, definitely.
It's got to be animated though. So, Priyanka Chopra, Nick Jonas.
Priyanka Chopra thing, man. I mean,
starring.
you really need these. All I'm gonna say is this: don't meet Hollywood stars. Once you meet Hollywood stars, you can't see them the way you used to see them in the movie. Just leave it at that, my friend.
Do you know any other actual married in real life?
You think those two are
actors?
Married in real life? You think those two are actually married in real life? No wonder you want no kissing, man. You're living in the 50s, man. You have no idea what's actually happening. You have no idea what's happening.
Fair enough. There's also Zendaya and Tom Holland.
You think those two are together? Right?
They're not even married.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
Come on, man. We're gonna bring the Hollywood back into Hollywood. That's the goal.
But it's never been there.
Bringing back
bring back something that was never existed.
We're bringing back the Angels to Los Angeles. That's what we do.
But they were never there. The city is Los Angeles. It's actually Los Diablos. I mean, this is never. They were never here, my friend. What is that line? What is that famous line? The devil's greatest trick was convincing people he didn't exist, right? That's Los Angeles. That's Hollywood. One day we'll do a podcast where I'll tell you some of the stuff that I've experienced, and I think you might leave the film industry if you learn some of this stuff.
No way. The thing's about to stop recording.
All right, so we've got one last thing I'll show you. Go watch this movie.
Oh, nice.
Cinema Paradiso. There's a lot of kissing in that movie at the very end. You're that guy. He says, no, we can't have the kissing. Cut the scene. You're that guy. Cinema Paradiso is made for you.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This is the film game. Go watch Mold Warriors with a Romanian Priyanka Chopra and Nick Jonas. Okay.
Well, that's not what we agreed upon.
Do we know any Muslim actresses? Anyway.
I do. None, but they're not famous.
Okay, we'll throw in an unknown.
And then make it to the and then you'll feel really ashamed for the kissing scene. All right, here we go. All right, I got to get out of here. Thank you for your time. Everyone enjoyed this, and it's all good. All right, what a pleasure. Take care.
Thank you, sir.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you once again.
Thank you.
It
Bye-bye.
was great.
How'd he start you? Hunting, birds, rabbit? I guess 19, 20 years old, the first time he ordered you to shoot a person.
You'll never see me coming.
At least the Illuminati was actually involved in the dark occult, or
yeah, who's like not in it for sure.
I mean, the only one who's not in it is